Okay, Captain America. I chose to not see this one in 3D because since one, he's not going to fly, I would assume the only things we'd see in 3D would probably be the four following things. When you first see Schmidt's car, the Hydra logo comes really up, goes really close. I would assume that would be in 3D. The shield flies at you twice. And of course, when he does a motorcycle jump. So, this movie is done by the same person, The Rocketeer. So you can tell he really, really knows this era and does it very well. This movie has a phenomenal period piece feel to it. Now, of course, the Steve Rogers character is someone who has lots of infirmaries. You know, he's asthmatic, and he's really small and slight. They mention he's like 90 pounds. Now, to do this, they actually took regular Chris Evans and had to like shrink him down, and then fill in the negative space left by shrinking him down. Some people think they actually put his head on a different sized body. They tried that, and it didn't look right. So ironically, they had to go through and physically shrink him down. So it's the same body. Because you can tell every now and then there are moments where his hands seem really bizarre. Like one hand will seem larger than another. But they're really slight, and if you didn't really know in advance that that's the style technique they used for it, you probably wouldn't catch it. And I only caught, once or twice because you see his hands like this, and one would seem a shade bit bigger. But beyond that, they worked absolutely flawlessly. And of course, he makes it in the military because someone sees something special in him. They see the ability for him to be not a great soldier, but a great man. And that's when he actually goes through a level of training. He shows that he has guts, he has compassion, he has heart, he has honor, he has everything that you want in someone that you're going to make become a super soldier. So he goes through the process, and who's also there is Howard Stark, Tony Stark's dad, who is there, who has a really large part, surprisingly, in this movie. So he's given the serum, and he's given the Vita rays, and when he comes out, that's of course what you see is the champagne shot. That is the term used for, when the guy is at his most muscular. Remember in Spider-Man where you first see, Toby and he's just cut 90 ways from Thursday? That's like the first scene that you see when he's finally, full-size Steve Rogers Captain America. And from that opening scene where he's chasing down his first Hydra villain, some moments have a little bit of comedy to them, which is good. This movie does have, it throws in comedy in the right spots. There's not a lot of comedy, but it throws in just the right amounts of it, which is good. Because beyond it, this is primarily a war movie set predominantly in World War II, with the bookends in modern day. And Hugo Weaving did a phenomenal job as the Red Skull. And of course they used the Terrorist Act. In comic terms, they did the Cosmic Cube, but originally it was the Terrorist Act. And he uses that to create just some ridiculous, I make you evaporate weapons. Now of course, Hydra was a subset of the Nazi group, and they didn't want to have, Nazi logos on all the toys or all over the movie. So instead, they pushed it over to Hydra. There's a moment where Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull, so he says that Hydra has grown as big as it can in the shadow of Hitler. So whenever somebody goes, my group is bigger and stronger than the Nazi regime and Hitler, that takes some gravitas. And the first time he realizes who Captain America is, after Captain America becomes a war bond salesman, the nice thing about that one is that actually throws in, the Golden Age comic where it's him punching out Hitler. That's where they throw in bits and pieces from some of the failed TV shows and some of all the other movies. So they throw in a ton of little Easter eggs throughout that whole process, as well as putting him in what would look like a Captain America suit if someone were to sew it themselves. Now when something happens to one of his best friends, James Barnes, we know him, Bucky, he decides, you know what, I'm done doing the song and dance, I want to actually get out there. So using the shield that he has, which is the Golden Age shield, he breaks into a Hydra fortress. And that's where he unleashes, I think it's Dum Dum Dugan and the Howling Commandos. So he breaks all those guys free, as well as breaks his buddy Bucky free. And that's when he finally comes face to face with the Red Skull. And this is the first time you see Hugo Weaving peel the mask off, the Hugo Weaving mask, and show the red skull. I like the way they did this because it's a dry application. When you look at it, it looks like an actual skull. It looks dry. In previous movies, when they've done the red skull, they've had it look almost wet and almost too textured, like the skin was peeled off, as opposed to there is no skin. He is literally a red skull. Good job on the nose definition. And Hugo Weaving does a phenomenal job in this. You know, he comes off as ridiculously evil. And once he peels the mask off, you don't see it for the rest of the movie, which is really good. So of course, once they decide that Captain America is going to go fight all these wars and is actually a really good soldier, that's when they then go back to, okay, we're going to find out a better shield for you. Because this one, your Golden Age shield, it's not designed for combat. It's got fist marks and like bullet marks in it. So there's a whole list of different shields. And then he sees the circular shield, made of vibranium, as opposed to a vibranium adamantium blend, which would make it stronger than adamantium or vibranium. But of course, made of pure vibranium allows to absorb any sort of impact. And that's when you see in the trailer where, Agent Carter grabs a gun and shoots at him. They show a reason why she actually shoots at him happens a few minutes before that. So, he goes out, and this is when he's first on the motorcycle, and he's destroying Hydra facilities one after another, until he finally comes face to face with the Red Skull. I can say that the fight scenes for this are done very well. I'm glad that they did lots of, I throw the shield, that comes back to me. I throw the shield that bounces off 4 things, now it's not like 3 guys, comes back to me. They did a very good job with it. Now there are little bits and pieces here and there, like Bucky does hold the shield for a while. I know that's a nod to comic fans, since Bucky was, up until recently, the Captain America replacement. And of course, if you know anything about Bucky, you kind of know what happens to him in the story, as well as what will probably happen to him later on, if they do subsequent Captain America subsequent Avenger movies. Now, one of the things that you also, if you know anything about Captain America, you know that after a fight with Red Skull, he goes into suspended animation. So you actually get to see a battle with him and the Red Skull on the Valkyrie. Essentially this giant craft that's pretty much got bombs to help destroy most of the major cities in the United States. The Red Skull is defeated, and the controls are wrecked. That's when Steve Rogers, Captain America, crashes it. So in the beginning, you get to actually see what was going on. When they actually found the craft, the whole movie, and then it actually crash landed. I really wish they would have shown one thing. In the previous movies, they've always shown Cap in the block of ice, and then like the thawing out process. In this one, as opposed to showing, Cap in the ice, they go from showing the shield in the beginning in a block of ice, and then Cap waking up in a bed in present day. So it was actually a pretty good setup for what happens after the credits. After the credits is your first teaser for the Avengers. I'll be honest, fairly solid. Much better than what they did for the end of Thor. So I can safely say 2D, definite. 3D, probably not so much. I really wish this movie, of course, could have come out on the 4th of July weekend, because nothing would have more patriotic than going to see Captain America. It's got stiff competition because this week it's going up against the people who saw Harry Potter. So it's got Potter to contend with, and next week, Cowboys and Aliens. So Captain America, when it comes to this year's superhero movies, we're actually ending on a pretty solid foot.